Hello and welcome back. This is episode 111 at Streets and Eats.
Woohoo!
And today on the podcast, we are going...
Well, can I interrupt real quick?
You can interrupt me all you want.
Okay, so it's episode 111. And because we're starting into the new school year, because that's how our brains think as teachers, we're now starting season 5. Season 5 of Streets and Eats. We have been doing this quite some time now.
We really have.
Over 100 episodes. I don't even know how many countries we've talked about, how many dishes we've talked about. We've done so much. And if there's something you're interested in looking at, you should really look at our archives and see where you can go and find out, what we think of those places, because been there, done that, and it's fun and we love it.
Yeah. And the podcasts are full of all kinds of information that you're not going to find anywhere else.
We're pretty sure about that.
So this, however, is episode 111.
111.
And today we are taking you to England. And specifically, we're going to do a top 5 challenge for England.
We haven't done a top 5 challenge in a while.
Yeah, and they're a lot of fun. I don't know why we haven't done one.
I don't know. We just haven't done it. So what we're doing is top 5 England, which... we will do a top 5 London. I think that's coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And we've decided that whenever we do the country top 5, we don't really talk about the capital city or the largest
big cities,
city,
because you're going to go there anyway. And we'll do a top 5 for those places because there's so much to do in London, for example. It might be hard to come up with a top 5 for London.
It is.
It kind of is.
Okay, so this week I have the trivia question for top 5 England. Let me see what I got. So England used to be called Old Blighty, and that has nothing to do with the trivia question.
Oh, good. Oh my God, that means nothing to me.
It does harken back to Victoria times, and which a lot of England does because that's more recent history. But that's one thing that's cool about England is it has such a varied history.
It's got a wide range of history.
And what that's done is just being in London. We just came back from London yesterday, and we noticed the diversity. Now, we're Americans. We're used to diversity. I mean, Americans are good at diversity, I think, overall. And I think
most of us
British are very good at diversity. But
most
I got
of them.
to tell you, mostly. Mostly. One of the things that we really love is eating there. And we love the different cultures and the different things that you get. So if you think of eating in England, eating/drinking in England, what do you always think of?
Fish and chips. Beer.
Okay.
Pubs.
Okay.
Pub food.
You're not anywhere near what I'm getting at, but that's okay. So taking all that into consideration, what do you think the Brits voted as their national dish?
Oh, wow.
Because there's a lot of very British foods. So what could it be? Sausage roll.
Well, I'm looking at your reaction to fish and chips tells me it's probably not fish and chips.
Nope, it's not.
Which would be
I gave it away.
Which would be one of my top ones.
Right. Absolutely.
It's a main. Or
it's
a snack type thing.
Yeah. The other thing I would think of.
Well, then I would have to think, this is kind of a general thing, but Sunday roast.
Sunday roast. Yeah, that's a good guess.
But not it.
But no.
Sausage rolls.
Good guess.
Cornish pasties.
No. Cornish pasties.
The pie.
Oh, a British pie. No.
Wow.
I'm going to give
you
the chip. Nope. I'm going to give you a hint.
All right.
I'm going to give you a hint.
I don't know if it'll help.
That is a weird hint. What do the Germans consider one of their national dishes?
Wurst or schnitzel?
Yep. And? There's even restaurants that I found this time around that just cracked me up. That had what the Germans consider their national dish.
Oh, the Germans consider it the national dish, but it's the English national dish.
No. I'm giving you the hint. So there's the German national dish.
So kind of a roundabout hint.
And then it works your way into the English national dish.
Well, this is moving pretty slow. I'm going to have to say that I don't know.
Okay. So the answer to...
Well, what's the German one that you were trying to get me at?
Is German doner kebab.
German doner kebab.
Remember we had the German doner kebab restaurants? Well, along the same lines, what could be a national dish for the British?
A kebab?
No, not a kebab. Do you give up?
I totally give up.
Honey, Indian food, chicken tikka masala.
Chicken tikka masala is the national dish.
Is what the Brits voted as their national dish because they love it. And I'm here to tell you they do love it.
They do love it. I love it too.
Well, we love it too. But every single menu we went,
that's true.
Every restaurant, every pub, every chippy, everything, they have curry or they have something to do
chicken
with
tikka masala.
Indian food. That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they love it. Isn't that an interesting? That was a good trivia question. I think
that was a good trivia question.
Yeah. Anyway,
I never would have guessed it. Obviously, I never did guess it.
Yeah, that's why I picked it. I like picking ones like that. You get the next one. You'll can try and
probably get my next question right. I've been trying to find stumpers, but I'm not as good at it as you are. Clearly.
Okay, so let's move on to
the top
five England battle.
So when we do this, I picked my top 5 blindly for you, and you picked your top 5 blindly for me.
We do not know what each other has chosen.
Yeah. So we'll start with number 5.
And we'll move up
to number 1. And then when we're done, we'll try to agree.
Meld them and say, okay, you're right about this one. Okay, I'll give you that. We'll make that 5. We'll make this 4. We'll make this 3. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And we'll come down with actual top 5.
The top 5 that we recommend people go to. Now,
so
in prefacing this, England, as small as it is, it's only a portion of the United Kingdom,
right?
Along with Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland. There's so much to offer there. There's so much history. There's so many things to do. So it is a real shame if you only go to London.
Yeah,
my daughter,
right?
Erica, and her husband Michael and our grandson AJ were with us on this previous trip, and they only went to London, and we went a little bit exploring outside of London.
Did a lot of the Midlands.
Yeah, we did a lot in the Midlands. And I was kind of chastising her. I was like, there's so much to this country. Get out of London. And I say the same to you. Do more than just London. I love London. I love London. It's got a lot to offer.
It really does.
But England also has a lot to offer.
As do the rest of the countries within the United Kingdom. So we'll probably end up doing top 5s for Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland because they each are just full of things to do.
Exactly. Okay, so now we're going to start with number 5.
So for this one, number 5, you want to go first or should I go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
My number 5 is... Okay. This is kind of a weird thing. And I'd be surprised, actually, if Jim doesn't have it on his list, too.
Yeah, I might.
It's a combination of visiting farm shops and garden stores. And I'll tell you why. And you're like, farm shops and garden stores, what is that all about? Well, as you know, Jim and I like to eat, and we like to find local places. And one of the things that people always have in England is tea. Well, tea really boils down to tea and scones, tea and cake, an afternoon treat.
It's more of a lunch usually for us.
A lunch or an afternoon treat or something. But yeah, we usually go there for our lunch. We find a farm shop or a garden center because typically they have really good cakes, which is important. They always have tea, which is important. And they have an array of sandwiches and some other English things like, they almost always have fish and chips. They'll have a salmon something. They have, just different stuff.
Different dishes.
So we like going there. We find that there are never any other foreigners there but us.
It's true.
Everybody else
It's not a tourist thing.
It's not a tourist thing to do, which of course.
Well, let me rephrase that. It's not a tourist thing for non-UK tourists, like foreigners coming to visit England. You don't really,
I don't think it's a tourist thing, period.
You don't find them. But you do find like not really tourists necessarily, but travelers, English travelers who will seek out and go to a farm shop.
Right.
Or a garden center. Not so much the garden centers, I don't think, but
probably
farm
not.
shops are really popular with travelers.
We actually found the garden centers first.
Yeah.
And
then
that's
the farm
super,
shops.
super local. People will go, I guess it evolved from people going to a garden shop on the weekend to, getting their plants or maybe a home decor or whatever they're interested in. And then they were like, gosh, I wish I had a cup of tea. I mean, who wouldn't?
What a great place for a cup of tea.
And so those sort of evolved. And we found those at least over 20 years ago, we started discovering this.
That's right.
And we have done this pretty consistently every trip we go. And we go to the UK in general, I would say a couple times a year, pretty much as possible. We love it. So that's a good tip. When you're out traveling the English countryside and you're looking for a good place for lunch and you want local, sustainable, farm to table type food, look for a farm shop, look for a garden center, and always look at the reviews to see which ones have the best cakes because let's face it.
Well, that's why you're going.
That's why you're going.
For the bake.
For the bake.
For sure. Okay, so that's your number 5.
That's my number 5.
It's funny because on a different list, I came up with something very similar, but we'll talk about that another time. My number 5 is a Sunday roast.
A Sunday roast. It's food oriented.
It is food oriented, so it's very similar.
It is very similar.
I could pick on this last trip. We had a phenomenal Sunday roast.
Sunday roasts.
Yeah, one was super good, excellent roast beef, and the sides and the trimmings were all perfectly cooked. That was an amazing Sunday roast. And the Sunday roast is really a typical English thing to do on a Sunday.
It is.
To find a good pub or a good inn or a restaurant that is well known for its Sunday roast.
Right.
Book a table and spend the afternoon there.
Right. I did not have that on my list, but I agree with it.
It's kind of similar to your idea.
It is. It's kind of funny that we picked food things for our number 5 because we know that when people are listening to us, they really want to go places and do things, but we also want to really encourage you to do cultural things. And I would say visiting a farm shop and a garden center for a lunch any day of the week, or going to a Sunday roast, whether you're in London or outside of London, it's very cultural. And I think that that's something you might want to experience. If you do a Sunday roast, though, do your homework, figure out where you want to go, and make reservations.
You definitely need reservations for the good ones, especially. And I could recommend the one we just went to in
out in the middle of nowhere, literally.
Horse Heath or Heath Horse. Not sure which one it was.
Horse Heath, I'm pretty sure.
A few miles outside of Cambridge. So if you're in that area, the Old Red Lion is definitely the place for a Sunday roast.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. But we've had excellent Sunday roasts all over England. So really it's a matter of, where you're at, and just go to Google Maps and type in Sunday roast and start looking at the reviews, start seeing which one looks good near you. Make your reservation and make a plan for it.
And I would also say maybe ask people where they go to their Sunday roast, because it is a very English thing to do. And you're going to find people have their favorites, and their favorites because for good reasons usually. Yeah. So ask around.
It's good food.
Anyway, that was a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
So our number 5s were not the same, but they were very similar. I like that. Okay. What's your number 4?
Well, you have to go next.
No, I don't.
Okay. You started. My number 4, get the right note here, is a place that we just visited on this last trip, which I thought was a phenomenal place and not something we would have gone to ordinarily. I don't think we would have found it on our own.
Can I guess?
You can try.
It's going to be the Colchester Castle.
No, but that was a good one. No, it's Gainsborough Old Hall, which was up. It's still kind of in Midlands.
Your number 4 in all of England? It's pretty impressive. I have to agree.
Was really impressed with Gainsborough Old Hall. It's an old medieval manor, lord's castle type thing, although it's not really a castle.
Not in any way, yeah.
But it was where he based it, the Lord based himself and, collected taxes, did fealty, all that stuff. He had knights. And the building itself is an amazing brick, half timber, just a conglomeration of all kinds of different architecture from the time period. And it has survived throughout the ages. And it's been used for several different purposes. It's been owned by the family, of course, for a long time. It became a theater, a playhouse for about 100 years.
Now it's a museum.
Now it's a museum, of course.
Yeah, with a tea shop inside, of course. I agree that is pretty spectacular. And it's an English heritage
It's an
site,
English heritage.
which we are going to do our next podcast.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot about English heritage.
English heritage. So it's, stay tuned for that. I agree. It's not on my list. But I agree. That's a fabulous place.
It's pretty good.
Here's what I love about it. Like you mentioned, we wouldn't have gone there. It's not on anybody's list of people coming in to visit England because it's one of those things that maybe is, it's a road trip place.
It definitely is.
You have to be able to get there.
And we should probably preface everything we say and do on any podcast with the idea that we really love a road trip.
We love a road trip.
It's streets and eats for a reason.
That's right. Exactly.
So if we can get out on the road and find these places that you wouldn't normally go,
smaller areas,
that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly right. Okay, well, that wasn't on my list, but again,
so that's my number 4.
I love it. Where is my list? Speaking of losing things, for some reason, I have the word London on the top of my England list. Maybe because I wanted to have the disclaimer about London, and it's confusing me. Okay, my number 4 is Blenheim Palace.
Okay.
Now, Blenheim Palace is a huge site. It is on people's lists. And it's a palace, and it is expansive, and it's got gardens, and it's got beautiful rooms, and the Duke still lives there, right?
Yeah, it's still a family residence.
Duke of Wellington, I believe.
Okay, probably.
Still lives there. The reason I loved it is because I'm a huge Winston Churchill fan. And one of the things, Winston Churchill is related to the people who own that palace. And it talks about his life and his times. And there's a long-standing exhibit all about Winston Churchill. And I am not someone who goes through a museum and reads every little thing. But I got to tell you, I was hard pressed not to read every single thing about Winston Churchill from his birth until, well past his prime ministership. It's fascinating. He was a great character. It's a wonderful setting. The place has, I think, 2 or 3 tea rooms.
Oh, yeah.
It has
different
outdoor kiosks. It has a great gift shop. It has shows for the kids. It even had a little train taking you out to different parts of it. It was an amazing place. You could easily spend a full day there.
Yeah, we spent quite a few hours there. And the one thing we didn't get to do that we really wanted to do was the tour that took you into the servants' quarters.
Because we signed up too late.
Yeah.
We made the decision to go there like a day or 2 before we went, and they were sold out.
Yeah, and you have to reserve that. You have to reserve that pretty early.
Yeah. So that's my number 4. I think it's a fabulous place. It's been on my list to go visit, honestly, for probably 20, 25, 30 years. And it's kind of pricey because...
Yeah, but the ticket is good for a year.
But the ticket's good for a year.
So if you are in this position where you can go back, you could... Instead of doing it as a full day, you could do a couple of different days and do it that way.
Yeah.
But, okay, well, I have to say I had Blenheim Palace on my list.
You did?
It was
we have a match.
Such a stupendous place. Where am I? I'm at number 3 now. I had it at number 3.
Okay. Well, that's pretty impressive. We're kind of on the same vibe here. We do travel together, we do live together, but we don't always have the same ideas as far as what's our favorite is.
But for me, it was the same thing. The whole exhibition, the whole section about Winston Churchill and his life, we learned so much there, and it was such amazing stories that I found myself reading every little placard too, and that is not usually the case in museums for me.
Well, we see
I
so
usually
many.
read more than you, but I tend to skip around quite a bit too. And I never really usually feel like I need to read everything because you
What
don't.
it did, one of the things it did is made me want to go out and get a biography on Winston
Yeah.
Churchill, because I never really fully understood what an amazing character he was.
Yeah. What
And
an
so
amazing life he led.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I'm glad that was your number 3. Well, then I'll move on to my number 3. My number 3 is kind of a cheat, another cheat. It's a whole island. It's the
Okay.
Island of Wight. Is that on your list too?
It is on my list.
Is it your number 1?
It's higher than yours. It's my number 1.
Oh, wow.
The Isle of Wight.
Wow. What's my number 1?
It's an
Wow.
amazing place to go visit.
What's my number 1?
You could do it in a day. It's very
Which we
easy. We did it in a full day, and we spent the night there as well.
We did
So
spend
we didn't
the
have
night
to get
there.
back, because you have to take a ferry there. If you just did a day, you'd have to ferry over and then spend the day there and then ferry back. I really like the idea of spending the night there because we got to be out there for the whole day.
Well, it gave us 3 full meals, and we love to eat, so we wanted to find good places to eat. So that makes a difference too. One of the things you might know about Jim and I is if we can take a ferry there, we're going.
Oh yeah,
we love a ferry.
It kind of goes along with the whole road trip idea.
It does. It's a
if I can drive my car onto a boat and go somewhere,
I mean,
to a different island, or
why wouldn't you, right? So we get to the Isle of Wight, and by the way, this was completely not something on any of our lists.
No.
Right before we went to England the last time, I was looking online, and one of my good friends, who is a travel blogger, Jessica, I'll link to her site. She's married to an Englishman, and she had just raved up one side and down the other side about the Isle of Wight, and of course I trust her, and so I said to Jim, I said, "Hey, we're going down to Portsmouth. Let's take the ferry over to the Isle of Wight for a day. Why not?" And of course, Jim never says no to things like that, because those are what
Doesn't take
we love
much
to
to talk me into it.
And we got there, and we're blown away. We went to Osborne House. We went to the Carisbrooke Castle. We went to Queen Victoria's little chapel when she's at Osborne House. We
Donkey
went to
Sanctuary, Roman Villa, just beautiful landscape, farms.
Enjoyed the sunset, really good food. Everything that we love, it had.
We did go to a farm shop cafe.
And we went to a farm shop cafe, as we like to do.
And maybe even technically 2 of them.
Well, we went to a farm for breakfast that has a cafe in it.
Right.
So I would say that's a farm shop cafe.
And it had a farm shop.
And then we went to the Garlic Farm,
Which was a farm.
Which is a farm, and a site as well. And that was really fun. All the tastings of the different garlics and things and we learned lots of garlic facts, because who doesn't need garlic facts in their pocket?
Yeah. And we had amazing food. That was a really good restaurant.
Delicious. Everything about the trip, the whole day, it was sunny. It was gorgeous. The ferry over there was fun. We met neat people. We just had a really good time. So it was only my number 3.
Oh, I had it.
But
much
it doesn't
higher.
really matter. I mean, I think the fact is that we loved it. Okay, so I'm going to let you do your number 2, because I think we've exhausted your list other than your number 2.
I do have one runner-up, but that's okay.
I have a runner-up too.
So number 2 for me is Stonehenge.
Oh.
It didn't even make your list, did it?
No.
No, I know that you're not a big fan of Stonehenge, but for me, that
I love
ancient
the history of it.
is incredible. The site itself, the stones are just beautiful, and they have a kind of mystical quality to them that even crowded,
I was going to
is
say
still there.
a diminished mystical quality when
And
you have
it may not have
hundreds
made
of
it as
thousands of
high
people.
on my list if they hadn't done so much like really good work in the interpretive center.
It was a good
the
interpretive
interpretive center there, I mean, it's amazing. I could spend hours in there.
Well, we did.
We did. That's true. Giving the history, giving the science of it, giving the spiritual beliefs of it, and then also linking it to other stone circles around the world and showing the connections. I thought it was really amazing. It is a very crowded place. You have to be ready for those crowds.
And we went during the summer, and perhaps if you don't go, like maybe if you go midweek in December,
Yeah, maybe.
or January or February when it's flipping cold out, maybe you won't hit throngs of people, but I kind of doubt it. I think that if people are going to England, if they're going outside of London, probably the number one site that they're going to go to is Stonehenge, because of its history, because of its iconic stature in our mindset. Everybody knows what it is, and everybody wants to go there. The first time Jim and I went were when we were first married, and
some
our
time
baby
ago.
was 8 months old. Our first baby was only 8 months old. It was midwinter, and there was no interpretive center, and it was at sunrise
And you
because we did that
kinda
on
just
purpose.
drove up to the site.
And you could drive really close
There was
to
a
the
chain
site.
link fence around it.
Yeah. And you know what? I think I liked it better then just because it sort of maintained its mystery for me. But I have to say, I was overly impressed with the interpretive
Yeah.
center. I did enjoy the walk out to the stones. The people didn't bother me. In fact, we met really nice people. The shuttle buses were convenient for getting there and back if you needed to. We walked one way, shuttled the other way.
Yeah.
And we had a good time. So I don't really have any reason to dislike it. I don't dislike it. I just don't think it's one of my top
You don't
five.
put it in your top
No,
5.
no, I can't. Not anymore. But I do understand why you did. Jim's always been a big fan of it. All right. So what have I not talked about? I have not talked about my number 2 or my number 1.
Okay, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Oxford.
Oxford, like the whole town.
Well,
The
pretty much.
university.
Yeah, the city. Because it is a university town. It's got old, magnificent buildings. It's got quaint little pubs. It's got a Harry Potter presence, because lots of Harry Potter things are sort of patterned
Right.
on some of those old buildings, and you can take a walk around and see that. And it's got the best, maybe my favorite museum in the entire world.
Oh, that's true.
It's got the Pitt Rivers Museum.
Yes.
And
That is a great museum.
It's the epitome of museums as far as I'm concerned. It harkens back to that whole Victorian era of Britain traveling
All the
around
British
the world.
explorers and collecting anything and everything that they saw that was new or different to them. And it all ended up in this museum.
Which is free
Well,
to
I don't
the
know about
public.
all of it, but quite a bit of it ended up in this museum, and it is jam-packed in there.
Literally jam-packed. Like you look at a case and it's like, where do I look?
Yeah. Which of these 100 things do I look at
opening
first?
your closet and things are falling out on top of you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing. And we just sort of, I had read prior to going that it was a good museum. And Jim and I are sort of, I don't know, we like museums, but we don't want to overdo museums. So we're kind of museum picky, I guess. And we like to do quirky museums.
Right.
Just the same old thing over and over again. We're not big fans of. I'm here to tell you, this hit quirky. It hit historical. It had having excellent stories. It hit all
just
the
interesting
spots.
artifacts.
So it's just I'm honestly saying it's probably one of my most favorite museums in the entire world.
I would agree with that.
And Oxford, the city, it's got quaint city streets. The university buildings are stunning. The people are fun. There's tons to do in the area. My mother lived not too far from there, so we would go to some of the small little towns to see all like the Norman churches and those those stone graveyards that are all wonky going in different directions and these ancient trees. And that whole area is just Henley on the Thames is right there. It's not far from the Cotswolds, which everybody also has heard about the Cotswolds, and it's gorgeous. I love the Cotswolds. It didn't make my top 5 list.
No, me neither.
But it's worth going to for sure.
For sure.
And so I think Oxford's a great place to base yourself and go there and do a lot of things in that area.
I would agree with that. I don't
that
know
was
if
my
I'd put
number
it high
2.
on my list, but I would agree with that. What's your number 1?
My number 1 might surprise you, but it's the Lake District.
The Lake Districts. I thought about that, It is beautiful.
Stunning.
The landscape is stunning. It's just gorgeous. If I could have thought of like one thing that really drew me to the Lake District, I may have put it on my list. But for me, it's just the whole landscape. Like we took this one drive that went up and over this. It was basically a cow path that had been paved that went up and over this mountain pass. That was every turn was just stunning. Something beautiful.
One thing I loved about it is we did the sheepdog experience.
Yes.
Where you learn all about herding sheep with the shepherds, and that was fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a fun experience that I don't think you can really duplicate.
No.
Too many places in the world. I'm sure there are other places, but that's a perfect place to do it. There are sheep everywhere. The landscapes are stunning. The villages in that area, beautiful. Once again, the food is fantastic. I mentioned that one of the things that is so British iconic, English iconic is English tea.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an area where no matter where you went, they had tea, where they would have the 3-tiered tea thing for, I don't know, 15 pounds, which is, let me tell you, cheap. But it wasn't a high class, like get all fancied up tea. It was just normal
casual tea.
English casual tea, where you got your tea, you got your scones, you
sat
some
and
great
chat
sandwiches,
for an hour or two.
Yeah, and you had and it was always good, always.
Had a great Sunday roast in the Lake District as well.
We did, and there's great little pubs for I love an English pub. They have the best names, and I mean, you can always get something to eat there. Some are better than others. I mean, that goes without saying. But I have this iconic picture I just took of Jim that I just like. I think I'll always think of England with that picture now. There's a golden retriever laying on the pub floor, and Jim's drinking a cask ale or a Guinness, one of the two.
Cask ale beer.
I think it was a cask ale.
Probably.
And you got this cute little pub with the ceiling that is just about to hit your head.
Practically bang my head every time I walk through.
I mean, to me, it's so British, it's so English, and it's so what you want to experience.
Well,
and
so many of them are hundreds of years old, and they've maintained their character, they've maintained their history, and they've been pubs for that whole amount of time.
Hundreds of years.
So yeah.
And we stayed at a farm at Airbnb at a farm, and we had the best hostess. She brought us.
She offered to do our laundry for us.
She offered it.
No,
for us.
We can do it.
Just
point us in the right direction.
Her cat was welcoming too, and brought us a present of a dead mouse. And if you know cat behavior, you know that that's a welcoming gesture. And it was just everything about that stay, that little trip, that national park, just is something that I always cling to as being like iconically British. So for me, it's way up
like
there.
I said, for me, because there was no like Isle of Wight, there's Osborne House, there's Carisbrooke Castle.
Places to
there
visit.
are like specific sites that are amazing that could have been top 5 list on their own. But because there's so much right on that island, I went with the whole island. The Lake District, if you're a hiker, if you're a trekker,
a photographer
of landscapes, it's just beautiful for sure.
I mean, just if you like old architecture.
I guess for me, it lacked that historical element.
Yeah. Maybe you would say it's not number 1, but it's got to be on the list.
I don't know.
Okay, so we've had our 5.
We're going to have to battle that out. Well, okay, I had one honorable mention that I
did too.
really wanted to put on my list, but couldn't really justify moving something else off the list for it.
Yeah, you're going to be surprised by mine, I think. But go ahead. What is yours?
Maybe. You might be surprised by mine. My honorable mention is a small little village, seaside village.
Mousehole.
Called Mousehole.
I guessed it. I'm not surprised.
It's not yours though, right?
No, I did love Mousehole.
So Mousehole is one of those, I say seaside village, but that maybe conjures up the wrong idea. It's not like seaside tourist village with attractions and all that stuff. It's an old walled harbor where it was an old fishing port, an old smuggler's port, and it's just got maybe 2 or 3 streets or alleys that are kind of running along the port and then up the hill a little bit. And there's just beautiful stone cottages, stone houses.
The people, amazing.
The people are super friendly. We had an excellent lunch there at the Four T's. Is that what it was?
Have to look it up.
One of the best fish pies
Probably the
ever.
best fish pie we've ever had. I'm not a big fish person as far as fish pie. It's not an American taste, I don't think.
No, but this was amazing.
This was beyond amazing. It was so delicious.
And when the tide goes out, there's a beautiful little sandy beach that everyone
the kids were jumping
loves and
just
goes
so
out
much
to
fun.
it.
So much fun.
It's just
I loved it, but it's not on
quaint
my
little
list.
corner of England that, there's a lot of those. There's a lot of those little villages.
Well, this is why I say get out of London. Okay, so my other one is actually a pretty big place that people have heard of. It's called Cambridge. And Cambridge is also a university town. Oxford, Cambridge. I kind of hit them both.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could put them together, I suppose. But what Cambridge has that's a little bit different is the punting boats.
The punting boats.
And so you can go down there and you can
punting on the cam.
Do punting on the cam. And that was a lot of fun.
That's a lot of fun.
You take the punting boat right through the canals, through these different, the different colleges. And it's just gorgeous. And we went on a beautiful day, so that certainly didn't help. Eton is there. And so we, of course, had to eat Eton mess, which was amazing. I loved it. But it didn't quite make my list. But, the problem is, when you're talking about a whole country, 5 is maybe not enough, but
right.
Golly, you got to stop somewhere.
Okay, so we have to now go through the unenviable task of actually deciding what should stay on the list and what number.
What were the things that were the same?
Okay, we both had Blenheim Palace.
Blenheim Palace, Isle of Wight, and I could say that we could do farm shop, Sunday roast, garden
as
centers,
one item.
Sort of as I don't know what you would call that. It's like unmissable eating opportunities, I guess.
I agree. I had that thought as well.
So we could make that our number 5.
That's number 5.
We both had it as number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Blenheim Palace, I had as number 4. You had as...
I had Gainsborough Hall at number 4.
Well, I think as much as I loved Gainsborough Hall, you're going to have to get rid of that one.
I don't know.
You're going to have to get rid of it.
Well, what would you put in number 4? What did you have for number 4? Blenheim Palace. I had that at number 3.
Okay, what else? Let's not maybe make that decision.
I would not take Stonehenge off my list.
What?
That's my line in the sand.
No.
If I'm taking off Gainsborough Old Hall, then I'm keeping Stonehenge.
Well, then what am I going to have to take off? Would you take off Oxford or the Lake District?
I would take off the Lake District.
Okay, I'm going to agree with this just because we've got to come up with a consensus. So number 5.
Well, and if you talk about Oxford or the Lake Districts, like you said, Oxford has the old universities that are just stunning and amazing to walk through.
There are things to do in Oxford if that's your rule.
And the Pitt River Museum is that could be number 4 by itself.
It could, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Okay. I don't want to take off the Lake District. I don't want to take off Cambridge, but I will. So I say we do farm shop number 5. Number 4 would be Stonehenge. Number 3 is Blenheim Palace. Number 2 is Isle of Wight. And number 1 is...
Oxford?
No. Isle of Wight has to be up there.
I would put Isle of Wight number 1. I had it number 1.
Isle of Wight number 1. Number 2, Blenheim Palace. Number 3, Oxford. Number 4, Stonehenge. Number 5, Eating
Sunday roast, farm shops.
We need to write this down or we're going to forget it.
Okay.
All right. We'll write it down in just a second. All right. Thanks.
That's our top 5.
Those are our top 5.
For England.
We're going to be doing the next couple of things still about England because you've got to go. It's wonderful. Next week, I think we're doing all about English heritage. So Stay tuned for that. And then after that, we're doing our top 5 London because London... if you think it was hard for England, wait till you hear our London one. We don't know what it sounds like yet, but I can imagine it's going to be
good.
Interesting. At any rate, stay tuned and toodaloo.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Streets and Eats. If you liked what you heard, please show us some love, hit the like button, and leave us a review. Maybe even subscribe so you don't miss any future podcasts. Also, we'd love it if you joined us on our Facebook private group, Streets and Eats, where we just have an ongoing conversation about all things travel. Ciao for now.